You might wonder why we'd be offering a humanities seminar on the topic of science fiction, but it's a field that's quite exciting to me, and so I hope to share some of that excitement with you. Science fiction and fantasy is really a huge field, and it is much larger than we would be able to capture in one semester. But if I could, I'd like to share with you what I think it's really about at its core. A science fiction story is a story which deals in some way with an advance in science and technology, so that if you pull the science out of the story falls apart. And so it's a kind of literature that is a separate genre. You can have science fiction movies, television shows, operas, poetry, paintings. What we'll be doing is we'll be reading novels and short stories, and we'll be looking at some movies and some television shows. Usually what makes these interesting to me is that you take an advance in science that is really important to us, something that really matters, and then you push that advance out into the future and test it. You say, well, how does this affect government? How does this affect war? How does this affect the individual psychology? How does this affect relations between the genders, the races? Does the nation state still have a role to play in this futuristic society dominated by these particular advances in science and technology? So we're going to be looking at lots of different scenarios, and we're going to be testing out types of advances. Science fiction can be thought of as breaking down into lots of subgenres. One of them, for example, is first contact. That is to say, if humanity makes contact with an alien race of some sort, how will that happen? What will it look like? This is a scenario that has played itself out in thousands of novels, short stories, television shows, movies. And so we'll be looking at some of those and thinking, what will this really look like? What will it feel like when it happens? And what will be the problems that will come along with knowing that there's another actual civilization out there that we have made contact with? Other areas include areas like genetic engineering and bioengineering. We now have the tools to do things such as to design new parts of the body, to design new eyes, new ears, new arms, new legs, new internal organs. At what point do we really re-engineer the human in a way that becomes problematic or ambiguous or disturbing for us? And you have a series of sort of receding goalposts. We do things routinely today that were science fiction 50 years ago. And so we should ask ourselves, what will those science fiction-like advances look like 50 years from now, 200 years from now, and to see how far we can push that into the future. So if you're a fan of science fiction and fantasy, or if you'd like to dip your toes into that new world, I welcome you to come join us. We're going to have this seminar on Friday mornings during the spring in the Poetry Center, and we would love to have you.